painting and thespian art, and he could talk about romantic poetry and metaphysical poetry. I mean, the guy was incredibly intelligent.
He read a lot. He wrote a lot of poetry.
He was incredibly smart. He read a lot of the books that he talks about in his raps. You know, he read the Prince and Machiavelli and all that. So he wasn't just quoting stuff out of the sky. The man really sat down and read some of those books.
A lot of people don't know that Tupac had gone to the Baltimore School for the Performing Arts, where he studied ballet and acting and all those things. So he was really well versed in all kinds of life.
Also, Tupac was a martial artist, and occasionally, once in a while, he would show off some of his martial arts techniques in the studio.
He'd sit in the back of the tour bus, like I remember when Mariah Carey first came out, and listen to that song, I don't know, was it Vision of Love? One of them, some slow shit. And I wasn't digging it. And I was like, man, will you turn that shit off? He's like, you don't understand. This is good music.
So there were some cinder blocks lying around in the room, and he wanted me to hold one so he could, like, break it with his foot. And I was just like, oh my goodness gracious, boy, I'm not sure I'm up for this one. And boom, just like that, I didn't feel a thing. Cinder block broke in half.
As a young rapper, Tupac was a local celebrity in the Bay Area. From birth, it was instilled in him that everything he did needed to be part of the struggle. This meant everything was done with fight and passion, and therefore risk.
If you're going to talk about Tupac, you have to look at the entire individual. And you have to really look at some of the things that are now just coming to fruition. The fact that he was in a writing group, you know, with Ray Love, when they were with the group Strictly Dope. In that writing group, he had incredible poems. You know, The Rose That Grew from Concrete was the name of the book that they put out.
I remember telling H one time, I'm like, man, he could be, you know, he has the potential to be really, really big, but he also has the potential to blow it really, really big. This was way back. This is before he recorded anything. It's just like, he was just, you know, young and wild. I had a lot of energy and had a lot to say.
He was one of the people that was helping start this after-school program with his first manager, Layla Steinberg.
Right now we're driving through downtown Berkeley, California, home of the revolution. You had like this police crackdown that kind of lasted for a few years, and Tupac actually got caught up in that because I can't remember exactly what the year was, but in 1990 or 1991, he got picked up and harassed by the cops and beaten down over here on Telegraph Avenue.
Really, when I remember having a conversation, may have been after he got beat up by the police. I remember seeing that. And he came to this place called the Omni, and he had these scars on him. And he was just on some like, man, they're gonna pay. I'm gonna make sure they pay.
I think it was probably on this block that Tupac was actually beaten by cops. It turned into a big case because people knew who he was. He was a celebrity around here. People knew he was, you know, down with the Black Panther Party from way back in the day. And I think Tupac was raised with the attitude that if something like that happens to you, you don't sit around and moan about it. You make noise.
Today, every young black male needs to be physically inclined and military minded. And this is part of the military mind. The soldiers are out there.
Tupac had always been surrounded by politically conscious people.
A lot of people see Digital Underground as Humpty, but they don't know that before Digital Underground became Digital Underground, they were a group called the Spice Regime. And the Spice Regime had plans to be the Black Panthers of hip-hop. Unfortunately, there was another group that kind of took on the uniforms and the attitude and the mannerisms that Digital Underground, when they were the Spice Regime, were headed towards. That group was Public Enemy.
Both of my parents, his mother, of course, but my father was in the Black Panther Party, so we kind of connected on that level, too.
The second thing that Oakland is known for is the home of the Black Panther Party.
My mother, Miss Sharon Harding, she made sure I was safe. So she moved me around the country to prevent the federal government from just harassing us. Pac's mother did the same. So we were out of communication for a long period of time because my father was underground. He's in prison now, Dr. Shakur. He's in Atlanta, United States Penitentiary he's a political prisoner.
Well, Afeni Shakur was part of the Black Panther movement. And as we know, in the 1960s and 70s, the broad movement for social change that was motivated by the civil rights movement on the one hand and the black freedom struggle more broadly. The civil rights movement was an attempt to find sure footing for black people in American society where their social rights would be protected and their civil rights would be regarded.
In the meantime, while Pac had been dealing with the struggles with his mother and, what they were going through, I was dealing with my mother and what we were going through,
Pac and his brother Mopreme met up again in Oakland after years apart.
And when we finally met up, again, we had the same things in common. We were still related, and so we carried it on. It was like a Thanksgiving in 1989. Afeni, his mother, had called me and told me to come and see your brother, see your sister, and my sister Setua, and I was living in Oakland, they were in Marin City. He was just coming out of high school and that type of thing, and so he gravitated towards me for some type of, stability, and fortunate enough, we were both involved in the arts, and we inspired each other.